Many countries have some form of murals in their cities, but the political murals of Northern Ireland are a unique instance as they historically promoted either Republican or Loyalist political beliefs and oftentimes glorified paramilitary groups such as the Provisional Irish Republican Army, the Ulster Freedom Fighters, and the Ulster Volunteer Force. Other murals commemorated people who had lost their lives in paramilitary or military attacks. Initially, these murals were a way to vent hatred and to gain sympathy. To understand why these murals were painted, we have to look back to the turbulent times from 1969 to 1998, when Belfast was the most intense area of sectarian conflict in Ireland. Painting murals quickly became the best way to indicate a position of either Republican or Unionist sympathies in sections of Belfast. As you can see, painting murals on the walls has several benefits. First, it is a low-cost messaging system that can potentially yield high returns. People may see it every time they pass by, and the murals remind them of the sides and positions of the conflicts. When people see them enough times, the impression can be left forever in their minds, and they may form an opinion if they don't already have one. Second, because the murals are striking and clear, people can understand their messages quickly and easily. Third, unlike a poster that can be torn down or otherwise destroyed, these murals have a much longer lasting effect. Last, they are a way to spread propaganda and messaging that doesn't involve shooting at someone or being shot at. Over nearly 30 years of unrest, approximately 2,000 murals were painted in Northern Ireland, which in a way were like 2,000 mini battlefields. In our presentation, we will choose some typical and famous murals among them and compare and contrast them over time. We hope that this will show a little bit about the themes and evolution of these murals. Today, the people of Northern Ireland are much more aligned with peace. The former battlefield has now become a tourist attraction. Bloody murals have been gradually replaced by much more peaceful slogans. We believe that these murals play a valuable role in reminding people of the unforgettably painful history and the peace that exists today. Many of the early murals in Belfast were primarily Unionist paintings depicting King William III and his conquest at the Battle of the Boyne. These murals allowed Unionists to declare their faith throughout the year or until they decided to paint over the existing mural anyway. The paintings of King William III and other orange symbols such as flags not only allowed Unionists to show their loyalty, but it was also a way of claiming territory as Protestant areas, especially after partition in 1921. The displays of King William III continued to be a prominent source for murals up until the 1980s. On the other hand, Republican murals were virtually non-existent up until the late 1960s, when the first barricades were erected in the bog site in Derry. These barricades were a way to keep the Catholic community away from the Protestant majority. As Catholic areas saw equal rights, they became more and more expressive in the way they demonstrated. This included the first Republican mural erected in 1969, proclaiming the slogan, "You are now entering free Derry." This mural was later redone for the arrival of Home Secretary James Callaghan in August of 1969. Leading up to the 1980s, more and more demonstrations and violence began to erupt between the two communities, resulting in many more murals reflecting the political and social struggle of the time. As the decade turned over from the 1980s to the 1990s, new themes and styles began to emerge out of the Belfast murals that reflected the changing mentalities of the Unionists and the Republicans. On the Unionist side, the murals painted in the 1990s accurately reflected the identity crisis that the Loyalist side had begun to go through. This became very evident in the King Billy murals. The drawing of the King Billy murals was part of the 12th celebration, which commemorated King William III's victory that effectively established consolidated British rule in Ireland. He became a very popular Unionist character to depict and was very much a central part of the Unionist identity. However, as the 1990s began, depictions of King Billy in murals began to decline. In addition, the existing murals of King Billy began to show signs of decay, which indicated that they were not being cared for as in years past. One notable King Billy mural from this time period is a depiction of King Billy as Michael Stone. Michael Stone was a Loyalist in prison for killing 3 people at a Republican funeral. The popularity of this mural showed the changing landscape of the Loyalist movement. While it was popular amongst the young Loyalists who had painted it and viewed Stone as a hero, it was less popular amongst the older Loyalists like Bobby Jackson. In addition, an increasing amount of murals painted by the Unionists in the 1990s were of inanimate objects. These objects included the Union Jack and the Red Hand of Ulster. The lack of humans in these murals further shows the Unionists' identity crisis at the time. By depicting the flags and crests of these organizations, they were depicting something that was well established, unchanging, and unfaltering, unlike the philosophies of the people within the movement at the time. On the Republican side, the murals painted during the 1990s continued to build on the tradition that started after the hunger strikes of 1981. Many of the Republican murals still depicted their plight and struggles. Though they have many murals that depicted the armed struggles of the Republicans and memorials to their members that had died, some of the more popular Republican murals from the 1990s used nonviolent and non-war related depictions to get across political messages. For the elections, numerous murals were drawn that urged people to vote Sinn Féin. Many of these murals were very funny in nature and less intimidating and violent than many of the other previous murals. In addition, many Republicans used struggles in other countries as a source of inspiration. A very popular one is the Ireland-Mexico Solidarity mural. In the photo, popular revolutionaries from both countries are depicted with the saying, "You can kill the revolutionary, but not the revolution." This is one of many examples of how the Republican muralists used the struggles in other countries to both draw attention to their own plight and inspire action amongst their members. Entering the 2000s, the murals continued to evolve. This nationalist mural depicts President George W. Bush in a satirical manner as the artist insinuates the outcome of the invasion in Iraq. A second metaphor in the image is the British support hook, which is a symbol of the perceived special relationship that the British government has with America and the situation. The Republican mural shows George W. Bush sucking Iraqi oil through a straw. The oil seems to be coming from the destruction left in the wake of the Iraqi invasion, which is symbolized by a tattered American flag flying over the remains of Iraq. The lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner are mockingly included in the image of Iraq, and the Irish note their dislike for the British and their continued involvement abroad in other sovereign nations. This mural is much more politically charged than the Loyalist image we are about to see, yet is focused on foreign policy and current events rather than Ireland's own internal struggles. George Best was the best footballer to ever come out of Belfast and died at 59 due to his alcoholism and liver transplant. He played in 361 matches for Manchester United and 37 for Northern Ireland. He was selected as the 1968 European Footballer of the Year after leading Manchester United to the championship. He grew up in a loyalist working-class family, dribbling a ball down the streets of East Belfast. He was the golden son of Northern Ireland despite his alcoholism, gambling, and womanizing ways. The airport in Belfast is named in his honor, and as the Northern Irish say, Maradona good, Pele better, George best. This example shows how more recently the murals have become symbols of pride and focus on social issues. The wall murals in Belfast used to tell stories of war and political unrest, but since have changed to portray new meanings. At the highest point of political unrest between the Loyalists and Nationalists, the murals showed images of violence. The Loyalist murals were always aggressive with paintings of masked men, AK-47s, and negative, threatening messages. In this image, the message reads, "Prepared for peace, ready for war," and although the word peace is present in the mural, it is clear that war is the main focus of the painting. Traditionally, images of guns and threatening men are not the best way to encourage peace. Today, however, the images on the murals have changed. It seems that the mural painters are depicting images of peace and hope for the future. Many iconic negative images have actually been painted over in Belfast to erase these negative times and pave the way for a brighter future. One example of a mural that has been replaced is the Tigers Bay mural on Culture Street. The image there once had two gunmen with a huge tiger's head with a UFF, Ulster Freedom Fighters, emblem to the left and UYM, Ulster Young Militants, one to the right. The artist who replaced this image along with others in the city was Ross Wilson, who wanted to use the inspiration of children to create the new murals. He is quoted as saying, "I wanted to help as long as the children had a say in terms of what went up." 3 words emblazon the new image of a tiger's head: community, pride, and culture. I did the painting with about 20 primary 7 kids from Curry Primary School on the Limestone Road. Using the children of Belfast's input to design the new murals is one clear example of how the focus of these murals has changed and how they are looking toward the future. Although it is positive the images are changing and becoming more positive, many people wonder if this is the right decision. For so long, the murals in Belfast were a major tourist attraction, and although the images were negative and at times even offensive, they provided a reminder to visitors of the difficult past of Northern Ireland. Although peace and stability have both come to Northern Ireland, tourists should not forget the significance that the murals once served by only being exposed to the newer, more positive images.
Artists Danny Devaney and Mark Irvine have come to UMass Amherst from Belfast, Northern Ireland, or the north of Ireland. If that sounds like 2 different places, it's intentional. Devaney is a former Irish Republican prisoner, and Irvine is the son of David Irvine, former Progressive Unionist Party leader and Ulster Volunteer Force member. Not long ago, they would have been sworn enemies. Now they paint murals together, and they're creating one for the UMass Amherst campus. Danny and Mark are participating in the Art of Conflict Transformation in the North of Ireland, Northern Ireland event series, where they're examining the role of art in the conflict and in the transformation to peace.
Me and Danny met quite by accident. It was the centenary of Belfast City Hall, and they wanted to celebrate that through taking photographs of people who were said to have been of some note. The photographer contacted Danny, who then put him in contact with me. And while he was setting up his equipment, his camera and his lights, both Danny and myself were standing with a cup of coffee and just started to talk and found out that we had a lot more in common than what either the two of us would have initially thought. We felt that through working together, we were putting on a display that was wholly public and wholly transparent. And it was also a very positive message that we were sending out to both our communities, because we will both be very pro-peace. None of us want to go back to the way it was.